far in this Democratic primary, Joe Biden, the front runner, one of what was perceived to be his biggest weaknesses going into this was his support for the war in Iraq. That has so far not been used against him very effectively through the course of this primary, but we might be entering into a period where that will change. And joining us now to comment, Jordan, welcome back to the Damage Report.
John, thank you for having me.
Glad to have you here. So we've got a new video that I saw on The Intercept that is pretty powerful in rebutting what has happened over the past week, which is Joe Biden saying or attempting to spin his support for the war in Iraq as sort of a begrudging acceptance that military conflict might be necessary, but he never thought they had weapons of mass destruction. And as soon as we were in there, he was against it. So that's what Joe Biden has said. But I want to take everyone back to 1998 to something else that he said. So for context, in 1998, UN Weapons Inspector Scott Ritter resigned in protest and accused the international community of not giving him and his colleagues the support they needed to carry out their job in Iraq, which had agreed in 1991 to destroy its chemical weapons stockpile. So Scott Ritter goes before the Senate, and here is what Joe Biden said at the time.
I think you and I believe, and many of us believe here, as long as Saddam's at the helm, there is no reasonable prospect you or any other inspector is ever going to be able to guarantee that we have rooted out, root and branch, the entirety of Saddam's program relative to weapons of mass destruction. And you and I both know, and all of us here really know, and it's the thing we have to face, that the only way we're going to get rid of Saddam Hussein is we're going to end up having to start it alone, and it's going to require guys like you in uniform to be back on foot in the desert, taking taking Saddam down. You know it, and I know it.
So that message was delivered almost as if it was a joke. He thought he'd hit multiple punchlines there. But that's a good half decade before we invade Iraq. He's making the case that there is no way without an invasion and taking Saddam out, that no matter how many weapons inspectors you have on the ground, you will never be able to guarantee that he doesn't have weapons of mass destruction, which does not seem to square with what he's been saying recently about his record on this topic.
Right. I mean, recently he's been saying that he opposed the Iraq war since the very moment it began. He's been saying this at town halls. He's been saying this at campaign events. And reporters have called this out because it's objectively false. Like, you could just look at his record and see that and even before the 2003 invasion, he was supporting some intervention and possibly regime change in Iraq. So Biden is just trying to distance himself from his record because this is a weak spot. He's desperate. You're seeing the surge of Sanders in polls nationwide. Sanders is right on his heels. So he's trying to distract people from that, including lying about it because he can't answer for it. He also can't answer for the hundreds of thousands of people, including many of them innocent people, who died as a result of his and many other senators' votes. And he was part of that effort. So naturally, you understand why he wants to get away from it, but he can't. This is part of his record.
You know what's interesting? It's like the 100th most important side effect of what's happening with Iran right now. But still, when it comes to the Democratic primary, as I alluded to in the intro, Joe Biden's support for the war hasn't really seemed to hurt him very much, and it seemed to imply to me that the American people, the primary electorate, weren't really thinking about issues of war very much when deciding who they would support. And so I'm curious, with what looks like the possibility of a war on the horizon, do you think that might have some effect on candidates like Joe Biden, that it might make his past record on this sort of issue more salient for primary voters?
I'm curious, honestly, what people will think about most people have come to acknowledge that the Iraq war was a complete and total failure. Most people accept that it should have never happened. Some also agree the same on Afghanistan. I don't know what kind of mover it'll be in voting, because a lot of people in America just are, they'll go along with whatever the party establishment says. And for a general wave in the Democratic Party to acknowledge that the Iraq war was a mistake would also condemn a lot of other top Democrats. So I'm curious how that'll play out. I think it's smart of Bernie to be loud and vocal in pointing out those differences between his vote and Biden's vote and people who supported the war. But we'll see. I just think there's a lot of people who buy the military propaganda, and the media has a large role in that. I think it's on outlets like CNN and MSNBC, although I don't have faith in them, but it's on them to point out that this war was an absolute catastrophe. They played a role in championing that.
Thank you for watching this clip from the Damage Report. For more content from the show and access to TYT Network members-only exclusives, go to tyt.com/Brooke. Wait, no, it's tyt.com/John. Go to tyt.com/John to sign up.